Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. I'm your host, Victor, and on this podcast, we're normally going week to week watching something. We have just wrapped up recently the TV psychological thriller Apple TV Plus series Smoke, which just wrapped up last week. Not a very successful season, and not that many people were listening to it, but we did follow through and cover it all. Of course, we just kicked off a much more popular series, Alien Earth, earlier this week. Had covered the first 3 episodes of that show. But of course, we are coming to the very end of Dexter Resurrection, and we are here to discuss that. As usual with these Dexter Resurrection recap episodes, I'm joined by Sona.
Hi.
And so we have a few things to get to before we start breaking down this episode. An episode called The Kill Room Where It Happens.
Love a Hamilton joke.
Got a Hamilton joke in there. Did you know they had rap music in Hamilton?
No way.
A couple of bits of news. I will be putting out an episode on Monday. I've been putting out multiple episodes because of this scheduling of the different shows we've been covering. And now that Smoke is over, I probably didn't need to put out a Monday episode, but there's just kind of things that I've been watching, and I'll be putting out an episode this week. And maybe it'll become something I do regularly where I mostly solo go and talk about some particular topic. I was going to break down in this particular episode the summer blockbuster season, like the box office, I should say, and walk through the films that came out this year and see if we can suss out some patterns, some interesting patterns within the successes and failures of those films. And it's pretty much the end of the summer season, so I might do that recap this weekend. And Sona, I might also have a review of the film Highest to Lowest, the new Spike Lee film. And are you guys going to go see this? I know you guys are Spike Lee fans.
My husband more so than I am, but I do tend to see most Spike Lee movies. This one, if I remember correctly, it's coming to, I don't know what to call it, a streaming platform very soon,
Apple TV.
Right?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Yes, so I'm trying to see this in theaters this week. But yes, Sona, as Sona mentioned, for anybody out there who wants to see this, this is a limited run that they're giving to some of their more prestigious films, also so that they become eligible for Academy Awards later in the year. But it's played since last weekend. Apple TV in general does not report to their grosses, so we don't know how it did at the box office. But anecdotally, it looks like these screenings are pretty well attended. There is a couple of theaters here in New Jersey that are showing it. There's a lot of theaters in New York that are showing it. Of course, Spike is from New York. But as Sona mentioned, if you just wait till September 5th, just 2 weeks away now when I'm publishing this, then it will premiere on Apple TV Plus. So I'll have my review a little early, probably in that Monday episode, and I'll keep it mostly spoiler free for anybody who obviously wants to catch this. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to watch this once it becomes available on Apple TV Plus. But this is a remake of the Akira Kurosawa film High and Low, which is one of my favorite Kurosawa films, one of my favorite films of all times, by the way, a great film noir. The premise of it is given away pretty early in, but it's on HBO Max, by the way, High and Low, the original. Everybody should watch that. I don't think it spoils anything in this subsequent remake, but a great film. So just to shout out, watch that while you're waiting for the Spike Lee remake to come out on Apple TV Plus. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about was that we got an email from Jed in London. And
sometimes you preview these for me, but this is the first I'm hearing. Exciting.
Oh, I should have sent this to you. I should have sent this one to you. I actually already addressed part of this email in the previous episode. And Jed, if you're listening to this, check that out. He basically was saying at the end of the email, he didn't ask for any advice, but at the end of the email, he talked about how he had seen Weapons and he had seen some other horror films in theaters recently, and he wishes his girlfriend would go with him to these movies. And maybe I'll ask you that question anyway, Sona. So Darren and I were talking about how do we get our wives to go watch these movies with us if they're not natively horror fans. And my suggestion was to find out things that she might be interested in. So, for example, it might be just psychological thrillers, and then maybe you can watch some psychological dramas together and then ease them into, say, like, look, this is just a horror version of that. And for example, if they like hate jump scares and they hate slasher films, well, then just kind of avoid those and kind of find things in the wheelhouse of your spouse. And Darren had similar advice saying that, for example, his wife goes to see films mostly because she follows particular actors. So, whether it was like Hugh Grant in Heretic, she's a fan of Alison Brie. So they went to see together because Alison Brie isn't together. So, find that common ground and then work from there. So do you have any advice along those lines? Do you have, like, for example, if your husband wants you to come see something that he's excited about, but maybe you're hesitant to, is there a way that you've had success getting your spouse or even your kids sometimes to watch something that you want them to get into?
I have a few thoughts.
Please.
The first is, have you made it a two-way street? Are you willing to see
Yes.
things that she's excited about that might not be in your wheelhouse? I think that is the first thing that needs to be addressed, because it cannot be a one-way street where she gets on board with his interests, but he doesn't get on board with her interests. So assuming that that is the case and he does willingly go see stuff that she likes to see and doesn't gripe about it or hold it over her head, then I think you've got to identify what the problem is, because, as we've discussed several times, I can't take the graphic violence of some horror movies. And to me, a lot of the time it's done just for the effect, first of all, but also it's just not something that I will enjoy ever. I don't think there's anything that could bring me around to watching graphic violence. I can be so interested in the plot of something that I will cover my eyes for a few graphic scenes. But if that's kind of the movie's thing, I'm not sure there's anything that will win me over to it.
Yeah. And
if there is a hard line stop like that, I'm not sure there's much that can be done. But otherwise, I would say, as you suggested, find the gray area, because there are certain things that are probably interesting to both of them that, like a psychological thriller, a suspense movie. It's kind of horror, but it's kind of not. A lot of psychological dramas are largely about relationships, right? So I would look for the gray areas, at least to start, but understand that there might be a hard line that you can't get past. At least there is in my case. Oh, and as far as how I've kept my husband interested in seeing things that I'm interested in, the answer, actually, as far as my trashy reality TV habit, is you just find a marathon and keep that running in the background. And eventually something's going to happen while they're in the room that's going to pique their interest, and they're going to end up getting involved.
Just a Stockholm syndrome situation.
Yeah. I mean, it's like an exposure therapy in a way. It's on for like 8 hours straight. And eventually they're going to wander into the room at an interesting point, and they're going to want to know how that argument turns out or whatever it may be.
And that's it. That's how it works. Echoing a lot of things you mentioned. First of all, Darren made the same suggestion that, if he wants his wife to go see something he wants to see, he has to watch Sirens with her on Netflix. It's just how it is.
There you go.
So that's definitely part of that as well. But to your point of the particular films that he was mentioning, Jed, in his email, was Weapons and Bring Her Back. And Bring Her Back is much more of like a very sad and moody psychological piece. Has a couple very gross scenes in it, but it's all in character. It's not like a film that's made to shock. And then Weapons, on the other hand, is a film that's made to shock, but more like with its plot. It doesn't have a lot of, again, there are definitely some rough scenes, but it's all in service of the plot. And that's more of like a roller coaster ride. So I think in either case, it's not like, for example, my sister loves horror films. Her boyfriend loves horror films. They go see a lot of horror films together, like everything that comes out in theaters. But he loves slasher movies, and she does not like slasher movies. So he's just on his own on that. So to Jed, I think in general, all the advice that Sona gave, that there are probably things that are in that gray area. And if you could be like, you're going to see all these by yourself, but then you bring her along for the ones that are going to overlap, she's going to get more into the habit of that. And alternately, if there's like a line that they don't want to cross, don't make them cross that line day one, because they're going to be pretty, they're not going to trust your taste from that point on. Right. So,
yeah, I mean, as much as I hate graphic violence, I definitely will watch things where maybe 10% of what I'm watching is some sort of graphic violence or less. Right. And I'll just cover my eyes and tell whoever I'm watching with, it's usually my husband, tell me when I can look again, right? Or it might not even be, something that someone would necessarily call graphic violence, but things that I personally am squeamish about. Like I can't see something happening to somebody's eye, right? Like that's just a thing I have. So, I'll just cover my eyes and say, tell me when I can look. And it's an agreement we have. He'll tell me when I can look and I trust him.
That's the other thing. Don't tell them to open their eyes early. They're not coming back next time.
That's right.
But Sona's a perfect example of this. I don't think you'd consider yourself a horror fan, but I know you love some horror movies, right? Some of your favorite films were like The Ring. I think
love
for you,
The Ring. Yeah.
Seeing a thriller, and could be a horror film as well, but seeing a thriller primarily in a theater with an audience is something that imprints itself on you. I think we've had conversations about some of your favorite movie-going experiences. So I think there definitely is a gray area for those type of things. And some of the movies I've recommended for you, by the way, like when I mentioned you should watch Heretic, which is now on HBO Max, by the way, I think you'd very much like that. That's a movie.
I think so too. I want to watch it.
Yeah, you should definitely check that one out. I think you're going to like Hugh Grant, like really having so much fun playing this really evil character. But at the same time, the two girls, the young girls, one of them from Yellow Jackets, which I know you have a relationship with that show somewhat.
Sure.
And but giving terrific performances, and the girls are not stupid the whole time. They are like very smart about confronting him and making the right choices, and things don't necessarily go the way they want because he's planned for that, but at the same time they're not idiots. And it's very psychological and very philosophical about like the very idea of why we force ourselves or need as a species to believe in things, and then he's confronting them about this. And interestingly, the characters in that film are Mormon girls who are doing their summer of proselytizing, and that's why they're at his house. And by the way, these actresses, both of them, are either practicing Mormons or former Mormons. So it's not even like they're making fun of the Mormon faith necessarily in the course of that film, although they do question the belief system there for sure. So very interesting. And, once again, that maybe is an interesting entry point for someone who says they're not a horror fan. And like I said, that film is something that rides a line because you can read that whole entire film as being purely psychological, but or not. You have a choice as to how you want to read that film, which is part of the pleasure in watching it. So another recommendation that might fit that wheelhouse. I'm sorry, go ahead, Simon.
I kind of had an anti-recommendation. Like you don't want to jump into like Final Destination,
Right. That's a very good point. I love the new Final Destination movie, which is on HBO Max all the way. I'm just promoting HBO Max content right now. The new Final Destination is on HBO Max, and it is so much fun if you like that type of thing. If your girlfriend primarily likes psychological thrillers or thrillers in general, I think just watching people get horribly mutilated in very hilarious and detailed and unexpected ways, that is not going to fit the bill. So two very different styles of genre.
Yeah, even the commercials for that one are freaking me out.
Yeah, but it's very funny, by the way, hilarious. The funniest probably of that entire series. Okay, but the part of Jed's email that I did not deal with until this point, I spent so much time on this part of it, but he was bringing up a really interesting point, saying that something that I honestly had barely registered, and then I had to go back and explore this a little bit, and very interesting that he brings up the fact that the Dark Passenger, this Red character in this season of Dexter, he questions, is this some kind of callback to the first season of Dexter? Because in the first season of Dexter, Dexter's very first kill is from the back seat, and it's a strangulation. So here we have the Dark Passenger. He calls himself the Dark Passenger in season 1 of Dexter proper, as well as here. And now we have this other Dark Passenger who is, so he brings up a really good point. In the opening, when you said, I actually thought that might have been Dexter, if you are really a hardcore Dexter fan who's just rewatched season 1, you probably might think in that moment, is this Dexter in the back of the car strangling this guy? Like, is he just killing for fun? And it's deeper than that, Sona. Because in the books, I have actually read the first 3 of the Dexter books. This is years ago, before the series was even on the air. And in the first book, the first Dexter, Darkly Dreaming Dexter, I believe is the very first book. In that first book, which has the ice truck killer, it's basically what the whole entire first season of Dexter is based on, and probably why it's so tightly plotted. It's the only one that is very close to one of the books. And in that book, he doesn't use the knockout drugs. He only strangles them. And so it's like very interesting that it's almost like Red is an alternate path version of Dexter in this show.
What an interesting point. And thanks to, is it Jed with a D?
Jed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks to Jed for pointing that out. I consider myself not a Dexter super fan, but a pretty serious fan, but I had forgotten that.
And I had forgotten too. And I've actually read these books. And I was like, only in doing my research on the Dexterpedia website, I was like, oh my God, that's right. In the book, he doesn't use the drugs. He does it with he chokes them out. So I'm like, wow, what an interesting turn of events. The show is these showrunners are very deep in Dexter lore here. But interesting that they have almost intentionally created this alternate version of Dexter, the one that's in the books, in this series itself. And then, of course, everybody just mentions how he reminds them of him in the first place.
I actually had something to share about a different version of Dexter as well. Should I do that now? It seems slightly on point.
Yes, let's do it.
It might seem a little less tangential here than it will in the discussion of the episode. You know, I'm kind of preoccupied with the idea, and I think it was, again, in this episode, of whether Dexter really was predestined to be this way, or whether there was something that could have been done to prevent him from being a serial killer. So I was remembering how in the Dexter Original Sin version, they make very clear that there is something wrong with Dexter's brother, Brian.
Oh, yeah.
And they have a scene where, I might not be remembering it exactly right, but he's maybe pulling the limbs off salamanders or something like that.
Right. I remember that scene early on in the season.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Something that is one of those hallmarks of being a future serial killer that you always read about, right? Like torturing small animals. And they make a point of showing that Dexter is not on board with that activity and finds it upsetting. And I was thinking about how in Dexter Original Sin, they definitely laid the groundwork for something being fundamentally wrong with Brian. You know, there are things about also, you know, originally the family adopted both Dexter, or I don't know if it was technically adopted, but fostered at least both Dexter and Brian. But Brian was clearly disordered in a way that made it dangerous for him to be around the family. And so they ended up sending him away. So they make a clear distinction between someone who already at that age, I mean, they're not the exact same age, but they're both little boys, and they both have witnessed something terrible. Brian is already showing signs of whatever, you know, is going to be causing him to be a serial killer in the future. Whereas Dexter is upset by those things and doesn't see them as right. So I thought that was an interesting bit of groundwork that they laid, depending on where this show eventually goes. And then the other thought I had, which is more just in a vacuum, I think you and I have kind of been using the word psychopath and the word sociopath interchangeably, even though we know that they're different. So I did Google and screenshot the AI description of a psychopath and a sociopath. So maybe we can be more careful with our language in the future. And it is, while both psychopaths and sociopaths are characterized by antisocial behavior and a lack of empathy, they differ in their emotional responses and ability to form attachments. Psychopaths are often more calculated, manipulative, and emotionally detached, with a superficial charm and a lack of remorse, while sociopaths tend to be more impulsive, volatile, and capable of limited emotional attachment.
So that might explain some of this. It's funny. I just mentioned this to you off mic, but my wife finally has watched Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the Donald Glover version.
So fun.
And it's so funny because she's like struggling to watch like Sirens, I think. And she's been watching it for weeks and got like 3 episodes into it. And every single time she's like, well, there's nothing else for me to watch. I'm like, you should just watch Mr. and Mrs. Smith. You should just watch Mr. And like, you know, the 25th time that I recommended it to her, she finally watched it. And of course, she watched the entire show in like 3 days.
So fun.
Because it's good. Unlike the other shows that she's struggling to watch. So But it's very funny because there's a whole, obviously the Mrs. Smith in that she diagnoses herself as a sociopath. So, but she does have some limited emotional attachment there in that. But I just kept thinking about this definition of sociopath, even outside the context of Dexter, because of watching that just the past week.
I feel like Dexter would be a hybrid of these two definitions as we know him now.
Probably. Yeah, probably. And to your point of what you brought up about Brian and such, I think it's pretty. I think they bring it up explicitly in the first season of the book. Of the season, and maybe in the book as well. I can't remember explicitly, but there was something where the dad, in explaining himself, said like Brian was too far gone, but maybe I can still save Dexter. So I think that was his calculus. But to your point, maybe he saw what was happening in Brian and applied it to Dexter, and then in a way programmed him. So all of this is actually interesting if you really parse it really closely. An interesting idea of like how we parent our kids, and are we parenting based on patterns we've seen in the other kids? And we probably do, but I don't think the show is actually deeply engaging with that. But it definitely is questions that it raises. By the way, just so you know, in the books, Brian does not die in the first book. Dexter lets him go. And he's around for the entire series of books. I think there's 7 of them. And he just pops in and out. And by the way, also, Dexter is possessed by a supernatural being, and that's why he's a killer. But Brian's a killer too, and not possessed by a supernatural being. So who knows? Who knows what's going on there? It's very crazy.
Takes all kinds.
It does to kill these many people. It takes all kinds. Okay, so our murder spree in New York City is coming close to an end. With the show just 2 episodes away, Sona, just 2 episodes away. And they're setting many, many things up in this particular episode.
I thought this episode was great.
A lot of fun, little suspense there. And I love how the show, actually, the most suspenseful moments are like, oh my God, are they going to kill are they going to catch the serial killer? I hope not. That's the weird psychology they put us in with this whole show. That's the appeal of it in some weird ways. As I mentioned, this is called the kill room, where it happens. Of course, the Hamilton joke there. I have put this in my notes, Sona, every single week, and I have forgotten to address it every single time. And I don't know how we've gotten to episode 8 now without me bringing this up. I am finally going to bring it up. What do you think about this not getting the traditional Dexter intro or a variation of it, first of all? And second of all, going the same way they did with New Blood, where they actually show you snippets of the episode you're about to see? Well, what do you think about this intro?
Such a good question. I also have been meaning to bring this up since episode 1, because in episode 1, they actually have a little scene with Harrison that is like an homage to the original Dexter opening, where Harrison wakes up out of his hotel bed and is flossing his teeth and whatnot. Yep. So it kind of was a shout out to that original sequence. And I guess that's all we were going to get as far as that goes, which I thought that original title sequence was super clever. So I do miss it. I will say in New Blood, the scenes from the episode that you're about to watch did not work for me at all. Here, I think it actually works pretty well.
I think the difference here is that they are selective about showing very little. And also there's enough variation in what's happening in the story where it doesn't give anything away. I think, with that previous series, which I think wasn't very good, that, they gave away a lot of stuff in those snippets because like only one thing would happen in the entire episode. And so that's pretty much what you would get a preview of. Like you would literally see somebody die in that preview. And you're like, okay, I guess that's happening this week. It's not as, subtle as it is here. As a matter of fact, it's the opposite, right? You think someone's going to die in this particular episode and they do not.
Yeah. Is this, well, we'll get to it. Never mind.
Yeah. Well, let's break it down. I do love Angel at the beginning of this episode with his yarn wall dictating to himself, channeling, what's her name? Homeland, Carrie, right?
Carrie. Yes. Full on Beautiful Mind situation happening there for, well, not full on. I mean, he is mentally sound. That's the irony of the whole thing.
I just love these scenes that are like, where they dictate out loud. And Carrie used to do this also, but at least a little more elegantly there, where you see her trying to unravel something very difficult. this is him just like explaining what he's doing, like as if he has to remind himself later. I put the AirPods in the car. I'm checking what places he goes to on a regular basis, and
Yeah.
looking to see whenever he breaks that pattern. Do have a question though, because he's a my car driver or whatever the hell it's called, your car. That it is his pattern wouldn't be that regular, I would presume.
Well, they make a point of saying that he likes routine.
Yes, he
So
definitely does. That's true.
So I guess he's counting on, aside from the time that you're driving, you have breakfast at the same one or two spots every day.
Right.
You wake up around the same time every day, that type of thing, I guess. But
Right.
to go back to the recording for a second, I also wondered, like, is this going to some kind of shared cloud
Yes.
space
Yes.
that somebody else is monitoring? Or is it one of these, you know, how you hear about people saying, I am of sound mind and would never take my own life. So if something happens to
Right.
me, it wasn't, regardless of whether it looks like suicide or not, it was not. It felt like that kind of thing of like he's trying to document, to share with somebody when something, if something bad happens to him.
Right.
But we didn't see it being uploaded to a shared space, I don't think.
Well, I think he's just using his iPhone, right? So, I mean, the iCloud itself could do that, right? Because your notes get backed up. So I thought the same thing, that, if he is sharing this with somebody, or like, if something should die, he'd be like, here's my iCloud account to tell you like where I was the day that I stopped communicating.
Yeah.
Then that is actually a good use of that. So hopefully that is what's happening. Dexter is hangry to kill somebody new, as his father diagnoses it. He wants to kill Al. That's the next person on his bucket list. I guess it's the only.
He's the only one left.
Only one left. That's right. Al is going to go watch Hamilton, and then he needs to head home because his wife is ovulating and they want to make another baby. This really creeps me out. This guy really creeps me out, wanting to have kids and out there killing young women. So, but I guess it remains to be seen whether he's really gone from the show or not. But he does agree to go have some Cajun pasta with Dexter after he watches Hamilton.
Yeah, I wonder if that was supposed to be at Applebee's or someplace else.
Was that Johnny Rockets? Isn't there a Johnny Rockets right there? I thought that's what the decor looked like it. Oh, I mean, I'm talking about when he goes to have lunch with his son in the Midtown.
When he meets his son in the theater district, it's definitely at Applebee's. They showed that sign.
Oh, they showed the Applebee's sign. Okay, I missed that.
I felt like it was kind of an advertisement. That's why it stuck in my head.
Definitely. Yeah. If they showed a sign, that was a place.
Point being, it's a shame to be in New York City and eat at Applebee's, but time and a place for everything, I suppose.
That's why I was assuming they would do like a Johnny Rockets or something a little bit more off the beaten path, but I didn't even notice that they had the sign up. Okay, so we see Charlie and we see Prater talking. Charlie's like, I just have bad vibes about this guy. I mean, I can't believe nobody else does. And I like how Prater keeps making these excuses, being like, look, I trust the guy. We had one conversation. I liked what he said to me. It reconnected me why the reason I love serial killers so much. And she's just like, I'm not into this. I just have many questions about Red, which she should have many, many questions. And by the way, just tailing this guy on a regular basis would probably give away a lot. But maybe that's what's happened by the end of this episode. Charlie should be insulted by this, by the way, where she's literally telling him, do you trust me or do you trust Red? And he's just like, do your job. Protect me. Keep me safe. Meanwhile,
sometimes you need to talk things through with your coworkers,
Absolutely. Yes.
He's just leaving her out on an island to solve this problem.
You got to hear them out. This is like the second or third time where he's just like, fix it. Just fix it.
Be a sounding board. She doesn't have anybody else.
I mean, I love the fact that he's just like, just fix it, just fix it. And it's like, you did create this whole situation. You did invite these serial killers here. Like, I didn't tell you to do this. Don't throw this on me now. Dexter, meanwhile, is looking for a place to kill Al. He finds a wig shop that looks like people are on vacation. By the way, Personality Crisis is playing on the soundtrack here. This is the New York Dolls from the 70s. Buster Poindexter, before he was Buster Poindexter, singing here. And it's weird that they're playing this song because these guys used to come out in drag. That's how they performed back in the day. They're like the proto punk band of the time, even before the Sex Pistols. But I find it very funny that, I'm like, why are they in a wig shop? I'm like, I suddenly pictured him putting on one of the wigs. But I like the fact that, of course, in the background, he's got all these ponytails because he normally would be showing the killer. This is why I guess he brought him there so he can show him the ponytail wigs before he kills him.
that was the weirdest part to me is I think a wig shop would display the wigs with the hair down and you would always have the option of putting the hair in a ponytail. Very strange wig shop that would only be showing all their wigs with a ponytail, but who knows?
When they back up, you see that they have other normal wigs too, but there's a whole section. Like,
there were like a dozen.
Like half the entire display is ponytail wigs. Who puts ponytail wigs up? Preposterous. The most ridiculous thing in this whole show.
Just buy the regular wig and put it in a ponytail. It's fine.
Like you need to suggest that? Oh, I can put it in a ponytail. Wow. Meanwhile, Staying Alive is checking out all of the Dexter newspaper clippings.
Yeah, this device is getting a little old for me, the Staying Alive music.
And this detective, I think we'll get to it later in the episode, but where her head starts to go on this whole series of killings is she maybe is not a very good detective at all. She is very observant, right? Notices right away that her partner's jacket has 2 size sleeves. So
when she said slightly longer, I didn't think it was going to be that noticeable as it was. I think I would have noticed that too. I don't know how he didn't notice it.
I know, wearing it and not being able to notice that. Dexter, meanwhile, is prepping his kill room, and Angel is onto him. He's like, what is this? He's stopped in the same place for over an hour. Okay, granted, I'll say that these are AirPods. The case was fully charged because he's been tracking him for days.
Yeah, I don't have AirPods, but wouldn't they have run out of charge by now?
The case holds a charge for a really long time if you're not using the AirPods. Like if you use the AirPods, I have AirPods, the newer ones, and the battery lasts a really long time. So you basically would use the AirPods. You could probably get 3 or 4 full charges on the AirPods from the case itself before the case starts to go do 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 to warn you that which is another dead giveaway. He would hear that as well. But if no one's using the AirPods, I assume the battery probably lasts a pretty long time. Although these batteries go eventually anyway. But so I don't know how long this has been going on for. But if this is weeks, that's probably straining credibility. I guess he's only been in New York. We just found out he's only been in New York for 2 weeks. So I guess it can't be.
Yeah, I don't think it's been all that long.
So how does he have a pattern? I have Dexter's pattern down. I've been tracking him for 2 days. I have 2 data points.
Good point.
He ate the same restaurant twice. That's the restaurant he eats at every day. I figured it out. While Dexter's prepping the kill room, by the way, he is feeling his shoulder pain. So he decides to go and see Blessing's daughter for another treatment.
Hey, can we back up to 1 second for him prepping the kill room?
Yeah.
Why? It seemed like he was in a back room of that wig shop later, which makes sense. Why would he put the plastic in the front windows of the wig shop?
I don't know. That's a good point. You know what? That's a very good point. Because
when he put the plastic up, I thought, are you going to do it right there in the front window? That's insane. But then, it turned out logically he was not in the front window. But then why was the plastic there?
I think this is a set problem, by the way. I think when they shot it, my assumption when he was putting plastic in the front of the place as well, was that it was just an open space. Like when you go to a barber shop and you just, beyond the window.
It just goes deeper in. Yeah.
And then, of course, I think when they shot the ending, they wanted to have that, him bowling over, probably for logistically, they needed to have that a space where he wouldn't just be laying in the middle of the room or just standing in the middle of the room and then Angel would walk in. So they probably needed to stage that scene. And then that's why you end up with that. And then you end up with this total incongruity where it's like, why is he wrapping the front of the building? It's like he has 2 layers, right? He's got the outside wrapped and then he has the inner area wrapped. So it's
it was like, this is very bold to just do this feet from the sidewalk. But yeah,
the amount of space required to sell a wig in New York City is incredible.
Well, they were selling other products. You do see that they have a whole aisles of hair care products.
But outside it just says wigs. Just says wigs. But I guess you could wigs doesn't imply hair as well.
That's how they get you while you're in there.
It's the opposite, right? You would get hair care and then wigs. You wouldn't be like wigs. Oh, I'm not going in there. Oh no, it's for other hair care products too. Because everybody needs just generic hair care products.
Maybe it's specific to wig care. I didn't get a good look. Maybe maybe all of that was wig care products.
You need a lot of, accessories to put it into a ponytail.
Yes.
So Dexter does go and get his acupuncture treatment. and Blessing's being very controlling about his daughter leaving. He was very attached to her. And Dexter's like, I should pretend to be a real boy and ask him like how she's been doing since her grandmother passed away, and ends up blurting out the fact that Blessing had told him about this secret that he had about him being a child soldier and all these things. And of course, his daughter asked the exact same question we asked last week, where it's like, why is he telling him all this? And he's only known him for a couple of weeks. And yes, that's actually true. Dexter probably would, as she correctly susses out, Dexter probably would assume that if he told me and I barely know the guy, he must have had this conversation with his family at some point. But no, this is a surprise to her for sure.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to go back to that original scene to see whether there was any kind of preface of like, I never tell anybody this, or, I'm going to share something very personal and private.
Later, when he confronts him, he goes, I told you, my mom told me to never let the darkness into the house. I'm like, that's a reach. I mean, I thought you meant like your own darkness in yourself, not like don't ever discuss it. And if that's the case, aren't you in your house right now discussing it with me?
Yeah, that's like a literary interpretation that needed to happen. But I will say, I am a person, and I think there are people that share whatever quality it is that I have that makes people overshare with me very quickly. So I actually could see sitting next to someone on a plane and learning all of their deep, dark secrets in 2 hours and just not, and then we just go our separate ways. For some reason, I am a person that people like to share with. So it could happen.
I used to travel for work and people would do the exact same thing with me. But it's like when I was at a conference and seeing somebody that I saw every 3 months, every year, would never see again, which is a little different than when you live with somebody under the same roof, right? So
true. I mean, at least you would go back and say, hey, remember that thing I told you about being a child soldier?
Just between you and me, right?
Yeah, don't tell my family about that because they don't know.
Yeah, interesting. But then again, he's only known him for a few days, so he probably hasn't had a chance to have that conversation.
Maybe, yes. He thought it would come up organically in some way.
Harrison's been talking to Dexter about how that blew up. Oh, Dad, I tried to talk to that landlord and the whole thing blew up in my face. It didn't go that well. Dexter starts contemplating. This is where his dad says he might be hangry for a murder, that he says contemplating killing Vinny if he can't kill Al. And I liked
in this scene, because I am so preoccupied with these bigger themes that maybe the show does not even intend for me to be preoccupied with. But I like when Harrison says, I said something I shouldn't have. And Dexter says, so did I. And it was something like, well, maybe it runs in the family. And Dexter thinks to himself, maybe it's just human. Like he's starting to have this idea that maybe some of the things he's attributed to him not being able to connect with people are just part of being a human being interacting with other human beings.
Right, exactly. And you're just, I think that is kind of the fun of that first season of Dexter, which once again is so excellent. But there are these scenes where, for example, he, I forget where it is, like it's Masuka or somebody, I forget who it is, who gets drunk and makes like a fool of themselves and then confesses these things to him. And he's like, wow, he was acting so happy and so normal. And now it turned out he was really sad and depressed and like in his own mind at the time. Is something that like Dexter experiences on a regular basis, this kind of performing this other, version of himself in public. And he goes, oh, it must be because he was drunk or, he's making excuses for it. And like, that's kind of the really interesting thing about Dexter's examination of the human condition from as an outsider to, because he's a sociopath, is this idea that where he's like, they're not that different, where he's like saying like, oh, see, I perform in public when I'm not having a good day, I have to pretend that I'm this, that, and the other thing. But, regular people don't do that. And it's like, no, regular people do that all the time. Going back to your point that maybe the dad overdiagnosed his sociopathy.
I put my foot in my mouth constantly, speaking for myself.
Right. We do a little comedy moment, very subtle, but made me laugh out loud, was when he's examining Vinny and looking at his history and everything else going, oh, this guy's much worse than he is. And his dad suddenly pops out. This is on the street in front of the Hamilton performance. His dad pops up and goes, that just because he's a bad guy doesn't fit your code. And Dexter just goes, eh.
It's like he's trying to back into it, Googling, I'm sure he's killed somebody somehow. Let's figure it out.
Indirectly, how many people has he killed?
Yes.
And of course, Al does not emerge. And Al calls him. I left at intermission. They have rap music in that musical. Not what I signed up for. He starts pushing it. He's like, oh, maybe I can come meet you in Hoboken. Like, this is so obvious. You're talking to a serial killer. Like, could you imagine like being this desperate to meet up with them? This has to be a dead giveaway that this guy is the killer of these other serial killers. Maybe this is what really gives him away finally.
I liked Al's, I'll see you next year, as long as things don't get too weird, what with all the murders.
With all the murders. Exactly. And he throws his phone away at the end, by the way. Dexter immediately deletes his number from his phone as well. Like, I mean, it wouldn't matter because he threw his phone away, but it would be funny to be like, well, you might want that number later if he was sharing his actual phone number. Dexter, of course, stupidly is sharing his actual phone number. That's the same phone he uses for his rideshare. Any kind of forensics on his phone is going to be very tricky later on for him. Dexter goes back to the house and meets up. Blessing's wife, by the way, goes, hey, look, I just happen to have New York State, like, what is this book she has? Just the...
It's the landlord-tenant law, which...
Oh, that's a good point. She would have it because they are landlords.
I do understand why she has it. I also think, I don't know how long they've been landlords, but it would be much easier to just Google the law at this point. You can get everything on Find Law, but yeah.
Very, very good point. But then they wouldn't have this opportunity for Blessing to be like, I need to take things aside.
Exactly.
And they choose him out for everything we just said before. I love the fact that he's just like, how would you like it if your son finally found out you killed somebody?
Very funny.
He's like, just one?
Yeah. I
like when Dexter also mentions the fact that when he still has an opportunity to kill somebody tonight, when one door closes, another door opens. Meanwhile, Harrison has gone to NYU, met up with this blonde cutie again. Do we know where she got this nerve damage in her hand? They seem to make a big deal about that. Did she mention that in the previous episode?
I actually wanted to bring this up last week and I forgot. Why does she have this injury and how is it going to be relevant to the plot? Because they are bringing it up an awful lot, unless it's just this thing about now she can't be a detective now. I don't know. But anyway, she said something about a motorcycle accident, I think, last week. But then I can't remember if it ended up being part of her messing with him or not, her story of it.
Yeah, I couldn't place or understand why they brought it up again. Like you said, except for the fact that he does get to do, be smart and I think caring in this moment, which of course wins her over, in saying like, hey, there's other types of jobs you can do. My dad was a blood spatter expert. So I am starting to feel more and more this might be a sacrificial lamb here and there. Or she's, covertly, a serial killer herself. Who knows?
Maybe.
But there'll be more for her to do. I mean, there's only 2 more episodes, so. I do like when Dexter finally abducts Vinny here off the street. Oh, yeah, of course, had this really nasty interaction with him. We kind of put him over the top. And did you think, or maybe what's your read, when he abducts him and he ties him up and everything, when do you think he decided to not kill him? Because obviously when even before Angel shows up at the actual wig salon and he's about to kill him and he starts saying, this is for all those people that you neglected, and for the mold you didn't clean up, like all that stuff. Obviously he's performing that for him because he wants to let him go. But do you think he was intending to kill him and then he changed his mind? Where do you think that pivot happened? Or was it always the case?
I have questions about that. And my first question is, have we ever seen Dexter let someone go once they're this far on, wrapped up on the kill table? There was one person that escaped in the, which version now? Original Sin. There was one person that escaped somehow.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm. I remember that. Yeah.
But
that's an early kill, but that was a mistake.
Right. But we've never seen him decide to let someone go, have we?
I don't think we've ever seen him let anybody go. No, for sure.
I am not sure how to read this scene. I kind of thought the decision was made only because he was about to get caught in the end, was where I came down. What do you think?
I didn't think so, because even before he hears the door open, he starts doing the whole thing where he's like, this is for the people who you put out on the street. This is for the people we can't breathe because of the mold in their apartments.
Yeah.
When he started over explicating things like that, I was like, oh, this is just a threat. And of course, that's what he says to his ghost dad later on. I was never planning to kill him. And his ghost dad's like, yeah, right. Which is once again, very funny to have this conversation with yourself, basically. So I guess maybe it is him trying to convince himself that I was always planning to let him go. But,
I'm kind of with ghost dad on this. I don't know. I feel like there are times he's had a few things. I feel like there are times he's had similar conversations with people on the table. And they usually say something that really angers him, and then in goes the knife. So I think that could have happened, a possible other way that this could play out. But also, they make a point later about how no one saw his face. But to me, we did see his face. I mean, it was modeled or muddled or however you want to say with all the stuff on it. But we did see his face, did we not?
I mean, I'm pretty sure if they can get this particular witness and they can do a lineup and she could say, could it be this person? Obviously if she puts him Angel and then, Dexter in front of him, he's going to be able to pick him out. But I think that's part of what's kind of set up here at the end, that we don't know who this guy is, right? Just some big guy who went running out the door.
That's fine. Yeah. I just felt like if he intended to let him go, though, he wouldn't have shown his face in that way.
Yeah, that's a good point, because then you have he could have like a baklava or something, because then, imagine he's with Harrison at some point and they intersect for some reason. Like Harrison's still at babysitting and he's there, and that would be like, wait a second, that looks like that's the same coloring, similar face and same build and everything as the guy who tried to murder me. That might be him. And by the way, speaking of, this guy was in, and maybe he just was so annoyed he only saw him for a moment and just walked past him. But Dexter was in his office earlier that day. So I wonder if he'd make that connection as well. Maybe he will, by the way. Maybe, by the end of the show, he'll be like, you know what? I started putting two and two together and I realized you are this guy and you're Harrison's dad or whatever. And then that endangers Harrison in some way. Angel shows up, of course, picks the lock and gets to see a kill room in effect. And he calls the cops in immediately, and Staying Alive and her partner show up. And he's like, look, don't you see? This is the kill room. And there are so many unanswered questions that are just glaringly strange about these multiple cases. The fact that they're so dismissive of him, being like, come on, where's your witness? Why did he let him go? There's just way too many questions. Like, you need to go and there's got to be some fingerprints or something somewhere in this place. He's not going to be so perfect that maybe he is so perfect he leaves no fingerprints, but there's going to be something that's a giveaway. Like, that's a lot of plastic he bought somewhere. Did anyone buy tons and tons of plastic? Maybe you could track that down somewhere in the general vicinity, a hardware store or something. I mean, for them to just be so dismissive about this is very weird.
Yeah. I mean, it seemed to all come down to the final few lines in that scene where they are implying that Angel set this all up.
Yeah.
I guess they went in with that predisposed to that idea that that's what was happening. And so, you ask all your questions with that frame of reference in your mind, because otherwise the whole thing seems very bizarre. But like you said, it just raises questions. It doesn't answer any. So yeah, it kind of felt like a sharp turn from where we previously left the NYPD and Angel.
Also the fact that he's saying look, these Dexter, by the way, sussed out pretty quickly that he had some kind of tracking device and found the AirPods and smashed them. And he's like, look, it's not showing up on my app anymore. But by the way, I've done this to locate my electronics before. It does show you the last place, in case the battery dies or something, it tells you the last place it was located. So he can still say look, here's the history of the movement of the object, right? Because you can see that. You can actually go back and say where was it, and it'll show up, right? Here's the AirPod at, 2:00 in the morning in front of Dexter's house. And they're looking at him like he's a crazy person. And I'm like, okay, that's not how that works. There would be plenty of, once again, nothing concrete, but there's some really sketchy behavior here. Dexter was here in this area of the city multiple times. And this is proof that this is Dexter. Look at the movements of this AirPod. And they're just not having any part of this. Bad police work again.
Yeah, and especially it doesn't quite track from we see that Staying Alive has an interest in this whole Bay Harbor Butcher
Right.
idea. She was Googling articles or whatever when her partner came in wearing the suit. So it doesn't quite track for me that they've dismissed Angel as some kind of Looney Tune, for lack of a better phrase, when she seems to think there's something there with the Bay Harbor Butcher. Otherwise, she wouldn't be reading articles about it.
Exactly. And worse than that is when we end very close to the end of this episode, when we get there, that the way that we see her going back from one screen to the other, listening to Staying Alive. I don't think she's listening to Staying Alive at this particular moment, but she was definitely earlier. But when she's jumping from one, the camera is panning in on Angel. So like, what is her theory of the case she's coming up with? Angel is the Bay Harbor Butcher? Like what?
That bowling picture, right? Yeah.
Yes. So it looks like she's zooming in on him because then, think about it. Maria died. His, his girlfriend, Dokes got, potentially, if you believe it's a frame up, his partner, right? So she's like, oh, it was Angel the whole time. Like, so, I mean, I guess there's a theory that Angel has done all this to...
Yeah, but who else has all those people in common? Dexter.
So... Right, exactly. This seems like a really stupid theory that she seems to be landing on. Maybe she doesn't think that he's the Bay Harbor Butcher. It could also be the fact that she might be thinking that he's obsessed with this case and he's trying to frame Dexter because he's obsessed with the case, right? So that could be the case. But I mean, that doesn't seem to be the direction they're going in, because when she talks to I can't remember his name, but Deb's ex, who's also a cop in Miami, who's still on the beat. Quinn, that's right. And she calls him up and he says, oh yeah, he's not a detective here anymore. He's been in New York for weeks. I don't know what he's been doing. So then she's like, in New York for weeks? Someone got killed in the hotel weeks ago. So maybe he killed them and made it look like the Bay Harbor Butcher to frame Harrison to bring Dexter in because he's obsessed with framing Dexter. And I'm like, man, if that's where she's going with this, that is like some really stupid police work. That is not Occam's razor. That's the opposite.
Yeah. I was just really surprised by this whole turn of events. Not that I didn't think it would necessarily like end up there, but this seems very fast.
Yeah. I guess they're running out of runway here too on the show. We could talk about what's probably going to happen in just the very next episode. And then, of course, that would only leave one episode for everything, for all the conclusions of all these plot lines. So I think there's they probably are just running out of room to explore these things. They need to get to it now or never. And of course, one of those big reveals here is that he meets up with Harrison this is the Applebee's. Is that right? Where are they now in this moment? I forget.
No, I don't know what this restaurant was where he's eating the super rare steak, right?
Oh, right. They're eating steak. The Applebee's is way earlier in the episode when they had the burgers. Right. They're having the steak and he goes, oh, finally that landlord looks like, I guess he scared him straight. That worked. Okay. He didn't call the cops or anything. He just is complying somehow. So he turned on the heat and he's going to fix the mold. And he's like, I just gave him a good talking to, and he came around. And Harrison goes, maybe you have like a real sense of justice as well, right? Maybe you are the dark avenger that you always saw yourself as. And Dexter's kind of proud of himself, like, oh yeah, maybe. And this is when Prater walks in and goes, oh, hello, Red. I didn't know you had a son. And I love that cut. They have to cut to Charlie outside with like a smirk on her face, like, I got him.
Yeah.
They have to get Uma Thurman. They paid her whatever they're paying her, probably a fortune to be in the show. Unlike the other people who are in the show for like, you think about even Al, like how many scenes? I mean, he was in multiple episodes, but how many actual scenes did they shoot with him? Like maybe 10 episodes. And he's in a car here, this final episode here. Pretty much it. So they didn't really need to pay them that much. But Uma's in every episode, so they have to use her. So she's like nodding her head. I convinced him finally to listen to logic. So what do you think that indicates? Do you think they have unraveled everything? Because I think they would know if they've done any kind of biography on Schmidt or on Red, that he doesn't have a son. So now they need to figure out, well, who's this kid? And they'll be able to figure that out pretty quickly. And that's going to lead to Dexter pretty fast if they haven't already figured it out.
Yeah, it doesn't look good for Dexter, I have to say. I thought this episode, in two scenes, one where Angel is breaking into the wig store, and two, here, this final scene where Dexter looks up and sees Prater. Both of them, had me on the edge of my seat. So I give them credit for that.
For sure. And in the next episode, we're going to obviously see this New York City convention. I mean, I should say the police department convention that they're throwing at the hotel where Harrison works. Obviously, that's going to bring everybody together, right? We're going to have Harrison. We're going to have Harrison's girlfriend. We're going to have Harrison's coworker who's possibly still has a crush on him. Whatever's going on with the landlord will be tied into this. Dexter will be there. Prater will be there. So all these things are coming together. Oh, of course, the police who are investigating him will be there. Angel will certainly be there. So what is going to happen? I worry that at this point, the thing is going to resolve with Angel taking the fall for Dexter's murders, and then he just gets off.
Sure looks that way.
And I mean, that would be a terrible way to. They would be doing really dirty to Angel if that's the case.
I mean, they already did that with Dokes, It
it's true.
feels
it's
like
true.
they've already.
And we love Dokes, right?
Well.
Dokes is a great character. That's a good point. Good corollary because we love Dokes too as a character, and they did him really dirty the way they got rid of him. So yeah, that may very well be where we're all headed. Next week's episode is touched by an hal. We got the tilde over the A. So Angel is coming to touch Dexter. And I'm sure that's happening at the police department. In the little summary, the little synopsis they have for next week's episode, I haven't seen theirs. They usually release, I think I've mentioned this before, they release a trailer for next week after it premieres on Showtime. So if you're watching this on Showtime, you probably see that bonus scene. But anybody who's watching this on the streaming, you can just watch it on YouTube on the Showtime channel after the Sunday episode. So they'll have some scenes for next week, which I haven't seen. But in the little write-up, they say that Dexter's got some explaining to do. And of course, I'm sure that Prater is, has a lot of plates to spin here if they are investigating Dexter or even trying to dispose of him in some way. But of course, he has to put on this public face because there's this big charity event happening, etc. What did you think earlier in the episode where Prater shows that he's annoyed that at first he's like, I love how this looks. Wait a second. Where the wheelchair is going to be? And then he turns. He says, it's fine. You did a good job. Just get it done by the weekend. And then he throws in there well, how's your your daughter? How's your daughter doing? Is she better? Is she better now? So a little, what did you think of that? What that says about Prater, his personality?
He, I think he fits that type of a person who does a lot of good, partly for the validation that he gets from other people for doing that good. Partly
for that, the actual public, not persona. What am I trying to say? The public image that creates about him, right?
Yeah, and he needs that validation from other people, right? That you did this very generous, unselfish thing, and so I don't know how genuine the drive is to really help people. It could be both. You could have a genuine drive to help people and also need that external validation. I mean, it could be that. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that they add this character detail. I'm not sure if it's gonna. I mean, I hope that it does give some complexity to his character because he obviously is hanging out with serial killers, people who kill other people for fun, and then at the same time, he's dedicated his life to doing all these of charitable works. So I was hoping that there would be something else going on there, but I don't know at this point. It might just be they're just trying to make the character quirky or something because I'm not sure they're going to have time to explore this, but it could be an interesting idea, right? That someone he does bad things and he does good things and he tries to feel well, I'm in balance as long as I do both, right?
How many episodes left? 2 or 3?
2 more.
Yeah, I think. Am I remembering right that this has already been renewed for another season?
They haven't announced another season of this yet, but I would assume this is one of the biggest hits for Showtime, if not their biggest hit. So I assume we'll see another season, but no, they have not announced the second season yet. I think this is the type of show where they probably wouldn't announce a second season until things wrap up because
Yeah.
I think they want to leave things open. It's like Mobland as well, which was a huge hit. It's like a huge hit. And I'm like, they're definitely going to renew this. But I feel like they were holding off the renewal because it's one of those shows where it's like, I don't know who's going to survive at the end of the show. So you don't want to be like, it's renewed, because then everybody would be like, oh, I guess nobody important died.
Yeah, exactly. That
Right?
definitely influences how you see it.
Yeah. So we have Touched by an Angel next week. And then the final episode is And Justice for All. And that's on September 5th. And that's, by the way, the exact same day, Sona, that Highest to Lowest premieres on Apple TV Plus.
Bringing it all full circle.
So maybe I'll review, or maybe I'll save the review till then. Maybe I'll do a mini review this weekend after I see the movie, just kind of like a general thoughts and recommendation if I recommend it, and maybe some other films you may want to watch along with it. But then on September 5th, maybe we can have a side conversation, a short one, if you get a chance to see the movie. Or if not, then maybe the following week we'll figure it out. Oh, and by the way, I think I mentioned this to you already, Sona, that on September 7th, it's a very busy weekend. On September 7th, that Sunday, is the premiere episode, the first episode of HBO's Task, which is going to be our next show. So Sona, we're going to have to record within like a 3-day window. We'll have to record 2 times.
Well, I love talking to you, so no problem.
Oh, great. And by the way, it's unlike last time we did this, when like it was every Friday and every Sunday because of the White Lotus and Severance being on at the same time. This would be just Task from that point.
Right.
So only one show, only one show, and only for 7 episodes. So it's a pretty short season there as well. All right, Sona, as usual, thank you for the conversation.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Great. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.